Hey guys, DC Network here, coming at you with another video. Warner Brothers Discovery has been in the news cycle a lot lately, after the company officially came out to the media and said that they are indeed exploring a sale of the company. A lot of different media outlets have been really scavenging to find information on who's going to buy this company, who are the players involved. I've discussed in many videos at this point what companies are interested in buying Warner Brothers Discovery. If you haven't watched all those videos, check out my videos on the channel discussing this topic. You could go back and see that Netflix is interested in buying Warner Brothers Discovery alongside Sony, Paramount, Apple, and the list goes on and on of potential buyers. But a new report has come out from Bloomberg establishing what Paramount plans to do with Warner Brothers Discovery if they do indeed end up with the company. So the report touches on a few different aspects of Warner Brothers Discovery and what Paramount plans to do with that specific portion of the company. I think the one that most people care about, and the one I'll start out with here, is what Paramount plans to do with all the different studios that they own and Warner Brothers Discovery owns post-acquisition. Essentially, they don't plan to have anything changed with all the different studios that they would own. According to this report from Bloomberg, the CEO of Paramount plans to keep all the studios intact as currently constructed if this acquisition were to happen. I think this is a major positive to be coming out of this report because I feel like most people's concern once a merger or acquisition happens is what does the future of that company look like and how will it change from what was going on prior to the merger or acquisition taking place. In other words, for a studio like Warner Brothers Animation, are they then going to merge with Nickelodeon Studios? Are they going to all be under one entity and essentially share all the same resources and not really have their own separate identities to keep each studio special like they've been for the past, however many years? A good example I can think of here is when Disney acquired Pixar, when Pixar went under the Disney umbrella. Disney didn't merge Pixar with Disney's animation studio. They let Pixar be their own distinctively separate studio from Disney's animation studio, and basically Pixar has essentially created their own brand identity and has become probably one of the best animation studios in the entire industry. So Paramount plans to do something similar to that, in that if they acquire Warner Brothers Discovery, Warner Brothers Animation will remain its own separate thing and will not merge with Paramount's animation division. The thing I find interesting about this is Warner Brothers Discovery kind of did the opposite of this a few years ago. If you guys recall, Cartoon Network, I believe it was last year, their building closed and they ended up moving into the same building as Warner Brothers Animation, and a lot of reports were coming out there saying that Cartoon Network Studios had shut down and that section of the company was no more. I wouldn't go as far to say that the studio has shut down and that it no longer exists, because it still does exist within the company. It's just a shadow of its former self. A lot of people who work at Warner Brothers Discovery within these studios has said that essentially it is dead because Warner Brothers Discovery has pretty much merged Warner Brothers Animation and Cartoon Network Studios, but whenever they make a particular project, they're just publishing it under one umbrella or the other. So for example, if it's a show that is a Cartoon Network original series, it would be published under the Cartoon Network Studios name. If it's a show like Teen Titans Go, for example, it would be published under the Warner Brothers Animation name, even though effectively they are one and the same. They are one studio. So I find it interesting that Paramount essentially wants to do the opposite of that and keep everything intact. I do wonder, and I don't think this would happen, but would they go back and retroactively say, hey, Warner Brothers Discovery decided to merge Cartoon Network Studios and merge Warner Brothers Animation, essentially creating this one giant animation studio. We're going to undo all of that. We're going to make Cartoon Network Studios basically come back from the dead, and we want you guys to focus on what made Cartoon Network great back in the day. I highly doubt that's going to happen because I don't think Paramount's going to basically even think twice about that. I don't think they're going to look at that and say, oh, yeah, Cartoon Network Studios merging with Warner Brothers Animation, forming this one giant animation studio was a mistake. We want to undo that mistake and have things remain status quo as they were 10 years ago. I don't think that's going to happen. I think everything that Warner Brothers Discovery has done, for better or for worse, is going to remain in terms of their studios. I think Paramount's just going to try to basically amplify it by giving them more resources to produce more content. And speaking of content, that's the big thing that everyone also cares about, is apparently Paramount is planning to quote unquote leverage tech and AI to have a total of 30 films released annually across all their different IPs within the Warner Brothers Discovery umbrella and the current Paramount Skydance umbrella. I think that's rather high ambitions, having 30 films released annually, presumably theatrical releases. I know AI is going to be the big hot button topic that people are going to focus in on with this statement here. here, or this report, I should say. Obviously, AI is a bit of a sensitive topic within a lot of industries right now because, unfortunately, AI, while it is a great tool and it's a great tool that people can use to enhance what they do, a lot of companies are using it to replace the people that do the jobs that they do. So a lot of times that AI is brought up in reports like this, it's really frowned upon, and I don't think AI is inherently a bad thing, right? I think it's more so the way we use it and the way these companies enforce it. If you give it to your employees to use to help them with their work, that's great. It's a great tool, but if you decide to replace your employees with it, that's not a good thing. That's really bad, and it creates less jobs, and obviously AI is not real. It's not a human being. It doesn't have the same creativity that we do. That line there is obviously something that I think is going to be a hot button topic that people are going to have a problem with, but I do think releasing 30 films annually is quite ambitious, and I think that's a good thing because Warner Brothers Discovery's output has lessened over the past 5 years or so, ever since this merger initially happened. So I think them ramping up production and actually making more movies, actually making more shows, actually taking care of their own IP. How many IPs are sitting on the shelf right now over at Cartoon Network? A whole lot of them, including Ben 10. So it'd be great to see them actually start to develop more within these franchises, and that's the reason why I've said in other videos that I think from a creative standpoint, Warner Brothers Discovery being acquired by Paramount would probably be the best acquisition out there, but I don't know how that would all work out financially, given that Paramount's currently like $15 billion in debt, and Warner Brothers Discovery has $33 to $34 billion worth of debt, wherever it is right now. The last two things from this report are apparently they're going to streamline distribution, which makes sense, right? Why would you have two separate distribution tracks when you have one big giant company now? And the other thing is they're going to combine HBO Max and Paramount Plus into one massive streaming service with a giant library. I think whoever acquires Warner Brothers Discovery, whether it is Apple, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Paramount, whether it's Sony, whether it's Comcast, although with Comcast and Sony, they don't have their own distinctive streaming services right now, so those two wouldn't apply to this. But if it's Apple, if it's Netflix, if it's Paramount, HBO Max is going to be gone. They're not going to keep HBO Max around because Netflix is not going to run Netflix and then also HBO Max. Paramount's not going to run Paramount Plus and then also HBO Max. Apple's not going to run Apple TV Plus and then also HBO Max. It makes absolutely no sense for those companies to have two streaming services running concurrently, essentially splitting your content between them. No, just merge them into one giant service and bolster your lineup and your library that way. The only thing about this that I feel like whoever buys Warner Brothers Discovery is not going to be too happy with is obviously Warner Brothers Discovery, HBO Max. They've sold the rights to a lot of their shows to other streaming service providers. I'm looking at Hulu right now. You guys know where I'm going with this. Hulu is pretty much the home for Cartoon Network originals. The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball is a Hulu original. It's not even a Max, Cartoon Network, HBO Max, Adult Swim, whatever you want to call it original. No, it's an original to Hulu. Steven Universe, Lars of the Stars is going to be a Amazon Prime original alongside Batman Cape Crusader. So I think whoever buys Warner Brothers Discovery is going to be not so happy about the contractual obligations they have in terms of the streaming rights for a lot of their shows, a lot of their franchises, because they're going to want all of the Cartoon Network originals to go into Paramount Plus to bolster that service's lineup, as opposed to getting paid by Hulu, a rival of theirs, to enhance Hulu, again, their rival streaming service. They don't want to do that. So I think that's going to be an interesting part of this merger or acquisition whenever it happens with whatever company it happens with, is how long until these shows that are currently being leased out to companies like Hulu, how long is it until they actually come back to Warner Brothers Discovery? When do those contracts end? Because that's something that they're going to want to do. They're going to want all those series to bolster Netflix, to bolster Apple TV Plus, to bolster Paramount Plus. Obviously, Warner Brothers Discovery had a different idea. They wanted to basically take away from their own offerings, which makes no sense, because they thought that if we sell the rights to these shows, we can make more money that way as opposed to getting people to subscribe to HBO Max. It's a whole mess. We've discussed this in other videos, but for now, today, the big takeaway is Paramount pretty much wants to keep everything the same as is right now, which I think is a good thing, because I think the big thing that people hate about mergers and the big concern that comes from them always is, are the people in place at the company that's being acquired going to be fired and let go of? And then what happens to that company? Does the vision change? I mean, we saw this happen when Warner Brothers Discovery first happened, when they first came to be. Tom Asching was just starting to put his stamp on Cartoon Network. He had this grand plan for Cartoon Network to rival Disney. Well, what happened was AT&T decided to sell Warner Media. They basically merged that company with Discovery. Warner Brothers Discovery is this new media conglomerate, and essentially they come in here, the new executives led by David Zaslav, and say, we're going to undo a lot of what Warner Media media was doing. So Tom Asham, you're fired. We're gonna cancel everything you were planning to do to make Cartoon Network a rival to Disney. We don't really care about Cartoon Network anymore, so we're gonna really make the network a shell of its former self. We're gonna have it really air no new series anymore. We're gonna really put more into Adult Swim, and we're gonna sell our shows to other streaming service providers. That's essentially what's happened, and I think that's the big concern that comes from any merger or acquisition, is what does the company that's acquiring Warner Brothers Discovery want to do with the company, and how does that differ from the current vision that they have going for them right now? Obviously, Warner Brothers Discovery, I would say, doesn't really have a big vision for a lot of their brands. It's kind of a big mess, but for something like DC Studios, they just brought in James Gunn to start this brand new universe. Imagine if Paramount comes in here and says, James Gunn, you're fired. We're gonna reboot DC once again. That would obviously be a really bad thing for the brand. But overall, I think Paramount would be probably the best buyer for Warner Brothers Discovery. I think they would be the best one, creatively speaking, at least. I don't know financially how that would all work out, but creatively, from a creative standpoint, this is the acquisition that I would want to see happen. Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about Paramount's plans for Warner Brothers Discovery post-acquisition, if they actually get that far? Because we know Warner Brothers Discovery has apparently rejected 2 bids from them so far, but it seems like Paramount is being the most aggressive, so we'll see what happens there. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.